The text came just before dawn. Avery Scott was half asleep on the worn leather couch of her Brooklyn apartment, her phone vibrating against her palm. She blinked against the grey light spilling through the blinds and squinted at the screen. Unknown number. Found this at the auction last night. It's engraved, A+L forever. Care to explain why my ex-wife's wedding ring was up for sale? Nathan Cole, her breath caught. For a second, she thought it was a cruel joke. Nathan, she hadn't seen that name in 3 years, hadn't spoken it out loud, hadn't let herself remember the sound of it in the dark. But it was him. The punctuation, the clipped tone, the way he still managed to sound both furious and controlled, even in a text message. She stared at the words until they blurred. Her ex-husband, billionaire CEO of coal industries, the man who walked out the night their son was born, and now he had her wedding ring, the same ring she'd sold for cash 3 winters ago, standing in a pawn shop that smelled of metal and shame, because Ethan needed medicine and the insurance had run out. Avery sat up slowly, the apartment creaking around her. Her son stirred in the next room. She brushed her hair from her face, typed, deleted, typed again. Avery, I don't know what to tell you. I sold it years ago. The reply came instantly. Nathan, you didn't tell me you were selling it. Avery, I didn't think you'd care. There was a pause. Long enough for her pulse to settle, just enough for the ache to start. Nathan, you're wrong. I always cared. By the time she left for work, the city was awake. Steam rose from manholes. Horns bled. The smell of coffee and rain clung to everything. Avery tightened her scarf around her neck and boarded the subway, trying not to think about him, but every noise, every shadow, felt like his voice following her. Nathan Cole. She used to know that name better than her own. Across the river. On the top floor of a glass tower in Manhattan, Nathan stood by his office window, phone still in hand. He hadn't planned to text her. Hell, he hadn't planned to think about her again. But when the auctioneer opened the small velvet box and that ring glinted under the light, her ring he'd felt the world tilt. He'd bought it without blinking. Twice the asking price. He didn't even know why. Maybe because it was the last piece of her he still had. Or maybe because some part of him knew, you don't bury love by ignoring it. You bury it by pretending it never mattered. Sir, his assistant said softly from the doorway. Your 9 a.m. board meeting, cancel it, Nathan said. Cancel. He turned, all of it. I'm going out at 10:15. Avery was restocking shelves at the corner coffee shop where she worked third shift. Second job when the bell above the door rang. She didn't look up at first until she heard his voice. Still taking 2 sugars in your coffee. She froze. The cup in her hand nearly slipped, slowly. She turned. He was standing by the counter, tall, immaculately dressed in a charcoal coat and black gloves, rain still glittering in his hair. Nathan Cole, in her shop. For a heartbeat, she forgot how to breathe. Nathan, she managed. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it, just the calm control of a man used to getting answers. Hello, Avery, her co-worker whispered. Is that? Yeah, she muttered, heart pounding. That's him. He glanced around the tiny cafe, the faded paint, the flickering lights. His expression softened, almost imperceptibly. You work here? Yeah, well, not all of us get golden parachutes when life falls apart. His jaw tightened. You could have called. You could have stayed. The silence after that was heavy, full of everything neither of them dared to say. Nathan reached into his coat and placed a small velvet box on the counter. The ring, it looked smaller now, less like a symbol and more like a ghost. "You pawned it," he said quietly. "Why?" Avery's throat tightened. "Because Ethan needed medicine. Because rent doesn't pay itself. Because some of us don't have stock options." Something flickered in his eyes. Guilt, pain, memory. He exhaled slowly. "You should have told me." "I did," she said. "The night you left. You just weren't listening." Before he could answer, a small voice piped up from behind the counter. "Mummy." Avery froze. Nathan turned, and for the first time saw the little boy with dark curls and eyes too familiar to ignore. "Who's this?" he asked, voice low. Avery's heart hammered so loud she could barely hear herself whisper, "Your son." For a moment, no one moved. The coffee machine hissed somewhere behind them. The city's noise seeped through the windows, distant and unreal. Nathan stared at the little boy like the air had been ripped out of the room. Avery stood frozen, hands trembling around an empty cup. She hadn't meant to say it. She hadn't meant for it to come out like that. Raw, unguarded, too late. But it was out. And there was no taking it back. "Your son." Nathan repeated, his voice low, almost disbelieving. Avery nodded once. "His name's Ethan." Nathan's gaze flicked to the boy, then back to her. His expression didn't shift, but his knuckles whitened against the counter. "How old?" "3," she said quietly. He blinked once, twice, calculating. 3 years, he swallowed. "You found out after I left." She laughed bitterly. "No, I found out the night you left." The words hit like a physical blow. Nathan stepped back, stunned. "You what?" "You heard me," she said. "I told you I was pregnant. You were too busy taking phone calls from your board." "That's not it is," she snapped, the years of silence snapping with it. "You said you couldn't deal with another scandal, that the company couldn't survive another hit. You told me to take care of it, remember?" Nathan's face went pale. "That's not what I meant," he said hoarsely, "but that's what I heard." The cafe was silent now. Even the customers had gone still. Her co-worker pretended to wipe the counter, eyes wide. Nathan took a shaky breath, trying to steady himself. "Avery, I didn't know." "I swear to God, if I had," she cut him off. "Save it. You knew enough to walk away." He exhaled, the fight draining from his voice. "Can I at least talk to him?" She hesitated. Every instinct screamed no. But Ethan had already noticed. The boy peeked from behind her apron, eyes curious. "Mummy, who's that man?" Avery knelt beside him. "That's an old friend." Nathan crouched down, lowering himself to the boy's level. "Hey, buddy." Ethan tilted his head. "Do I know you?" Nathan smiled faintly, voice unsteady. "Not yet." Avery's manager whispered from behind the counter, "You want me to ask him to leave?" She shook her head. "No, it's fine." But it wasn't. Nothing about this was fine. Nathan stood slowly, adjusting his cufflinks like he needed something to do with his hands. "We should talk. Somewhere private." "I work until 6, she said flatly. "I'll wait." "Nathan," he met her eyes. "I'm not leaving again, Avery. Not until we talk about this." There was no threat in his tone, only quiet resolve. The same kind of determination that once built an empire. She sighed. "Fine, after 6. He nodded once. "I'll be here." The rest of the day blurred. Orders, customers, noise, none of it registered. Every few minutes, she caught sight of him through the window, Nathan, standing under the awning across the street, hands in his pockets, watching, just like he used to. By the time her shift ended, rain had started again. The city lights shimmered on wet pavement. She grabbed her coat, waved goodbye, and stepped outside. He was still there. "You really waited," she said. He shrugged. "I said I would." She crossed her arms. "You always did like control, and you always mistook it for not caring," he said softly. "Maybe we were both wrong." They walked in silence to a small diner a few blocks away, the kind that smelled of fried onions and old coffee. He held the door open, and for a moment she hesitated before stepping through. They sat in a corner booth. The waitress poured coffee and disappeared. Nathan broke the silence first. "Does he know who I am?" Avery shook her head. "No, I told him his father lived far away. That's all." He nodded slowly, absorbing it. "Does he know what I do?" She almost laughed. "He's 3. He thinks CEOs drive garbage trucks." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "At least that's honest work." The smile faded quickly. "I never wanted this, Avery," he said. "Not the distance. Not the silence. I thought I was protecting you by disappearing, by taking the heat myself," he said. "You don't remember what it was like back then." The board was circling, the investors. "I remember exactly what it was like," she said sharply. "I was in a hospital bed, alone, wondering if the man who promised forever had already replaced me with a press statement." Nathan flinched. "I didn't replace you. Then why did you never come back?" He looked at her for a long time, eyes shadowed. "Because I didn't think I deserved to." That stopped her. For the first time, his voice wasn't cold. It was human, tired. She looked away, blinking hard. "Ethan's a good kid," she said quietly. "Smart, kind. He deserves better than this." "Then let me try," Nathan said. She met his gaze. "You don't get to just walk back in, Nathan. You can't buy years." "I'm not trying to," he said. "But I can show up now. Every day, if you'll let me." Her throat tightened. "And if I don't?" He smiled sadly. "Then I'll show up anyway." When they stepped back into the rain, he reached into his coat and held out the ring again. "Keep it," he said. "It never belonged to me alone." She stared at the velvet box, water dripping from her lashes. "You think a ring fixes what you broke?" "No," he said quietly. "But maybe it reminds us that something was real once." She hesitated, then took it, not because she forgave him, but because part of her still couldn't let go. "Good night, Nathan," he nodded. "Good night, Avery." As she walked away, he stood in the rain, watching her go, the street lights painting the city in silver and regret. And for the first time in years, Nathan Cole, the man who once owned everything, realized he'd lost the only thing that ever truly mattered. The next morning, Avery woke to the sound of rain against the window, soft, persistent, the city still half asleep. She'd barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Nathan standing in the rain, the velvet box between them, his expression that strange mix of guilt and longing. She told herself it didn't matter, that whatever he wanted now, it was too late. But when she stepped into the kitchen, Ethan was sitting at the table, legs swinging, holding a toy car in one hand and a newspaper in the other. "Mummy, look," he said. It's Mr. Alexander. He's on the paper. She froze. The headline read, Nathan Cole spotted in Brooklyn after years off the grid. Rumors swirl of secret family. Her stomach dropped. By 9 a.m., her phone was ringing non-stop. Mia, her best friend and the only person who knew the full story, was the first to call. Please, tell me this isn't what I think it is, Mia said, half whispering like the whole city could hear. It's not, Avery said, even though it was. Girl, you can't let that man waltz back into your life like nothing happened. He's media gasoline. One photo and your world's on fire. I didn't ask him to come back, Avery said, pacing. He just showed up. Mia sighed. That's what rich men do. They show up late and still think they're heroes. By noon, she was at the hospital, her other job, the one that paid most of the bills. She'd almost managed to forget the chaos when the nurse's station went quiet. Someone was standing in the hallway, black coat, sharp suit, umbrella dripping water on the tile. Nathan, her pulse spiked. What are you doing here? He lifted a small paper bag. Ethan left his inhaler in your car yesterday. Her eyes narrowed. You followed me here. No, he said calmly. I called your boss. She told me you were on shift. You called my boss. He winced slightly. Maybe not my best move. Avery exhaled sharply, trying to keep her voice down. You can't just walk into my job like this. I wasn't trying to cause trouble. You already did. Congratulations. She turned to leave. But he said quietly, Avery, wait. Something in his tone stopped her. I meant what I said, he continued. I'm not leaving again. She looked at him, tired and angry, and something else she didn't want to name. And I meant what I said. You don't get to show up after 3 years and act like it's noble. Nathan's voice softened. Then what do I have to do? She hesitated, jaw tight. Start by not ruining what little life I've built. He nodded, eyes unreadable. Okay, I'll try. That night, she found an envelope slipped under her apartment door. No name, just her address, written in his familiar, precise handwriting. Inside was a single check for Ethan's medical fund and a note. Not charity. Just a start. She tore it in half. Then again. Then sat on the floor and cried, because she didn't know if she was angry at him or at herself for still caring. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. Until Friday evening, when Ethan came home from school holding a business card. Mum, guess who came to pick me up today? He said, smiling wide. Avery's chest went cold. What? He said he was your friend. He has a big car and he bought me ice cream. Her hands trembled as she took the card. Nathan Cole, private office, a Manhattan address. A phone number her heart pounded. She found him sitting in his car outside her building, as if he'd known she'd come storming down the second she found out. He rolled down the window. Before you yell, he was standing alone outside school. The teacher thought I was family. You are not family, she snapped. His jaw clenched. He's my son, Avery. You don't get to decide that after 3 years of silence. He stepped out of the car, rain misting his shoulders. Then tell me how to be what he needs. Her eyes burned. He needs stability, safety, not some stranger with a bodyguard and a past on the front page. Nathan's voice dropped. And what about you? She blinked. What? What do you need? She opened her mouth, but nothing came out, because for the first time in years, someone had asked and meant it. The rain came harder now, blurring the streetlights, soaking through her jacket. He stepped closer, not touching her, just close enough to be real. I can't change what I did, but I can be here now, for both of you. She shook her head, tears and rain mixing. You can't fix everything with words. I know, he said quietly. That's why I'm still standing here. Later that night, when she tucked Ethan into bed, he whispered sleepily, Mom, Mr. Nathan's nice. He said he used to know you. She smiled faintly. Yeah, baby. He used to. Are we going to see him again? Avery hesitated. We'll see. But deep down, she already knew she'd see him again. Because Nathan Cole was many things, stubborn, complicated, impossible. And for better or worse, he had always kept his promises. The invitation came on a Thursday. Avery found it wedged between the electric bill and a grocery flyer. No name, no note, just a clean white envelope with embossed letters. Cole Residence, Saturday, 3p.m. At first, she thought it was another reporter stunt. Then she saw the handwriting on the back. Please come. For him, Nathan single, she told herself 100 reasons not to go. Then Ethan asked, Mum, are we going to see Mr. Nathan again? And somehow she said yes. Saturday came grey and humid. The kind of New York afternoon that smelled like rain even when it didn't fall. They took the train. Avery's choice, because the idea of Nathan's chauffeur waiting downstairs felt wrong. When they reached Midtown, Ethan's eyes grew wide at the rows of glass towers. Do people live in these? He asked. Some do, she said. Some just look down from them. He grinned. Do we get to go up? She hesitated, then smiled faintly. Yeah, baby. We do. The elevator ride was silent. 43 floors of silence. When the doors opened, Avery expected a crowd, assistants, staff, someone. Instead, it was just Nathan. He stood barefoot in jeans and a white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. No bodyguards, no armor. Just a man who suddenly looked very human. Hey, he said quietly. Ethan waved shyly. Hi, Nathan knelt, eye level. Glad you came, buddy. You hungry? The boy nodded instantly. Avery crossed her arms. You didn't have to cook, he smiled faintly. I didn't. My chef did. But I did try the salad dressing myself, so technically, I helped. That earned him the smallest laugh from her, the first since that night in the rain. Lunch was awkward in the way that new beginnings often are. Ethan ate spaghetti with both hands, asking questions between every bite. Why is your house so big? Do you have a dog? Why does your fridge talk? Nathan answered every one with patience she didn't expect. Because I bought more space than I needed. No, but I used to. Maybe we can fix that. And the fridge talks because it's lonely. Ethan laughed until he snorted. Avery caught herself smiling. After lunch, Nathan showed Ethan the rooftop garden. The boy ran between planters of rosemary and tomatoes like he'd discovered a jungle. Avery stood by the glass wall, arms folded. He's not used to this, she said. Nathan joined her, watching their son. Neither am I. She glanced at him. That's hard to believe. It's true, he said. I built all this, and somehow it never felt like mine. Her voice softened. Maybe because you were missing the part that made it home. He looked at her. The air between them charged with old ghosts and something fragile. New, I missed more than one part, he said quietly. She didn't answer, afraid of what might spill out if she did. Later, Ethan fell asleep on the couch, his small hand still clutching a toy car Nathan had given him. Avery watched, her expression unreadable. You shouldn't have bought him anything, she said. It's just a toy. It's a start, she said. And starts scare me. Nathan nodded slowly. Then we'll go slow. He poured her coffee, sat across from her. Avery, I need you to understand something. I don't want to replace what you built. I just want to be part of it. Her eyes searched his. You don't know what you're asking. I do, he said softly. I'm asking to earn a chance. She looked away, the city glittering below them like 1,000 untold stories. You think time fixes everything, she whispered. No, he said. I think honesty does. She met his gaze. Then tell me the truth. Why did you really leave that night? He hesitated, just long enough for her to know the answer wasn't simple. I got a call, he said finally. From my father's lawyer. The board had found out about you, about the pregnancy. They wanted me to end it quietly or lose everything. I thought walking away would protect you. Avery's voice cracked. You protected your name, not me. He swallowed hard. You're right. And I've been living with that mistake every day since. Silence fell, heavy, real, UNFIXABLE. Then Ethan stirred, mumbling in his sleep. Mom, Daddy. Both adults froze. Nathan's eyes widened. Avery's breath caught. He doesn't, she began. I know, Nathan whispered. He was dreaming, but something in his expression said he'd carry that word like a brand, not because he'd earned it, but because he wanted to. When they left, he walked them to the elevator. Ethan hugged him without being asked. Bye, Mr. Nathan. Bye, champ. Avery lingered a moment. This doesn't mean anything, she said softly. I know, he replied. But it feels like something. The doors closed between them, and for the first time since the night she sold the ring, Avery felt something shift. Not forgiveness, not love, just the faint, terrifying whisper of maybe. The story broke on a Monday morning. Avery was making pancakes half-burned, the way Ethan liked them. When her phone buzzed on the counter, Mia's voice came through before she could even say hello. Turn on the TV, now. Avery frowned, grabbed the remote, and there he was, Nathan Cole, standing at a podium in front of a wall of cameras, microphones crowding around him. No suit this time, just a dark jacket, open collar, eyes steady. I have a statement, he said. 3 years ago, I made a decision I regret every day of my life. I walked away from someone I loved, and from my son. Today, I intend to make that right. The room exploded with flashes and questions. Avery froze, the spatula slipping from her hand. He said it. Out loud, the secret she had guarded like armor, gone in seconds. By noon, there were reporters outside her building. Neighbors peeked through blinds. Phones rang non-stop. When she tried to leave for work, a man with a camera stepped in front of her. Double quote, Ms. Scott. Is it true your son is Nathan Cole's child? Did he pay you off? Were you together when he resigned as CEO? Avery pushed through the crowd, heart pounding, shielding Ethan with her arm. Leave us alone. She shouted. The questions kept coming, sharp, merciless, endless, until a black SUV screeched to a stop at the curb. Nathan stepped out. Enough, he said, voice like steel. Back off. The crowd quieted. Cameras flashed. He reached for her hand. Get in the car. She hesitated. This is exactly what I didn't want. I know, he said. But I'm not letting them corner you. Inside the SUV, silence buzzed louder than the city outside. Ethan leaned against her shoulder. Mum, why are they yelling? Avery smoothed his hair. They're just noisy, baby. Don't worry. Nathan watched from across the seat, jaw tight. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. She turned on him, fury barely held back. You never mean for anything to happen, Nathan. It just does, and we're the ones left to clean it up. He flinched but didn't look away. I wasn't going to hide him anymore. You think I wanted to hide? She said. You made that choice when you left. I was trying to protect him. I'm trying to protect him now, he said, by throwing us to the wolves. Nathan leaned forward, voice low but urgent. The wolves were already circling. I just decided to stop pretending they weren't there. They drove in silence for blocks, the noise of the city muffled behind tinted glass. Finally, Ethan piped up. Mr. Nathan. Nathan blinked, his anger evaporating. Yeah, buddy. Why do people take pictures of you? He smiled sadly. Because they don't have anything better to do. Ethan giggled. That's silly, Nathan met Avery's eyes. Yeah, it is. For a second, the tension cracked. Small, fleeting, fragile. They arrived at his building through a private garage entrance. The moment the door closed behind them, Avery spun on him. You can't just go public like that, she said. Do you have any idea what this means for us? I do, he said quietly. It means no more hiding. You think that's noble, but it's selfish. You did this for you to ease your guilt. He exhaled sharply. Maybe I did, but that doesn't make it wrong. Avery shook her head, pacing. I can't do this. Not again. Nathan's voice softened. Avery, no. She turned to face him. You don't get to decide what's best for us. Not anymore. Her hands were shaking. You've already taken enough. He looked at her, something breaking quietly behind his eyes. Then let me give something back. Avery stared at him for a long moment, trying to find the right words. The ones that would make him leave. But before she could speak, Ethan tugged at her sleeve. Mum, he whispered, can I stay with Mr. Nathan today? Her heart stuttered. Why? 'Cause he has a big TV, Ethan said, grinning. And I like his fridge. Nathan laughed, a real laugh, soft and surprised. Avery sighed, torn between fury and something dangerously close to tenderness. 1 hour, she said, and if you feed him sugar, I'll kill you. He smiled faintly. Deal. An hour turned into 3. Avery watched from the corner as Nathan helped Ethan build a tower of blocks on the living room floor. For once, he wasn't the man on magazine covers or stock tickers. He was just a father, laughing when the tower fell, letting Ethan climb into his lap too, rebuild it. She'd forgotten that version of him, the one who could be warm without trying, and maybe that's what scared her most, because, for the first time since the night he left, she didn't just remember who he was. She remembered why she loved him, when she finally stood to leave. He walked her to the elevator. I know you're angry, he said, but I meant what I said this morning. You mean the part where you told the world about my life? The part where I said I wanted to make it right. She sighed, the fight draining out of her. You can't undo 3 years with one press conference. No, he said. But I can spend the rest of my life trying. The elevator door opened. She stepped inside. Be careful what you promise, Nathan. I might start believing you. He smiled faintly. That's the idea. The doors closed, and for the first time, she didn't feel entirely sure whether she wanted them to. By Wednesday, the headlines had multiplied. Fallen CEO confesses secret family. Nathan Cole's ex-wife breaks silence. Except Avery hadn't said a single word. She kept her head down, took extra shifts, ignored the microphones outside the cafe door. But silence had a way of making noise on its own. Mia showed up at closing time with 2 coffees and a look that meant trouble. Girl, she said, dropping into a chair, you need to go offline for a week. I'm already offline. Then go to Mars, because your face is everywhere. Avery groaned. Great. Mia leaned forward. You didn't tell me the man was that Nathan Cole. He was just Nathan when I knew him, Avery said quietly. Well, now he's a saint to half the internet and a liar to the other half. Congratulations, you're trending. That night, she found an unmarked car parked outside her building. 2 men in suits waited by the hood. When she got out of the taxi, one stepped forward. Ms. Scott, Mr. Cole asked us to make sure you and your son are safe. She frowned. We don't need security. With respect, ma'am, after this week you do. From the window above, a flash went off. A camera, Avery sighed. Fine, but stay out of sight. Inside, Ethan was already in pajamas, playing with toy blocks. Mum, he said, without looking up. Mr. Nathan called. Her heart skipped. He what? He said he'll come tomorrow. He said we can make pancakes again. She smiled faintly despite herself. Did he now? Nathan did show up the next morning at exactly 9. He wore jeans and a grey hoodie. The corporate polish replaced by something quieter. Avery stood in the doorway, arms crossed. You really sent bodyguards. I didn't want to, he said, but your address leaked. It won't last long. Do you hear yourself? You turned my life into a headline. He met her eyes. And I'll spend every day taking it off the front page. Ethan ran out, squealing. You came. Nathan smiled, kneeling to catch him. Told you I would. The boy threw his arms around his neck like it was the most natural thing in the world. And just like that, Avery's anger cracked because whatever Nathan had been, he was trying now. Later, while Ethan built towers on the floor, Avery washed dishes in the kitchen. Nathan leaned against the counter. Board called, he said. They want me to step down permanently. She didn't turn. You already did. They want me out completely. No seat, no vote, no pension. Her hands stilled in the sink. So that's the price of truth. He nodded. Worth it. She looked at him then. You really believe that? I do, he said softly, because for the first time I can look my son in the eye. Avery's chest tightened. You keep saying things like that, and I won't know whether to forgive you or slap you. He smiled faintly. I'll take either. That night, Ethan refused to let him leave. Stay, Mr. Nathan. Please. Nathan glanced at Avery, hesitant. She sighed. Fine, couch only. He grinned. Couch, it is. After Ethan went to bed, Avery brought him a blanket. You don't have to keep showing up. Yes, I do, he said. You don't have to let me in, but I'm here anyway. She hesitated in the doorway. You're still impossible. And you're still the only person who ever told me when I was. She laughed softly. Good night, Nathan. Good night, Avery. At 3 a.m., thunder rolled outside. She woke to find the apartment dark, power out again. In the faint light from the city, she saw Ethan sitting on the couch beside Nathan, both wrapped in the same blanket, her son's head resting on his shoulder. Nathan looked up when she appeared. He got scared, he whispered. I can see that, she said. She was about to turn away when he said quietly, he dreams like you. Talks in his sleep. What does he say? Nathan smiled faintly. Mostly that he wants pancakes. Avery covered her mouth, laughter breaking through the exhaustion. He looked at her a long moment. Thank you, he said. For what? For letting me see what I missed. In the dim glow of the city, the apartment looked softer than usual, less like survival, more like a home for the first time in years. Avery didn't feel like the world was closing in. Maybe it was because he was there. Maybe it was because, finally, he wasn't pretending to be anyone else. She didn't trust him yet, but she didn't tell him to leave either. The headline hit before dawn. Avery Scott, the barista who broke a billionaire. By 8 a.m., her phone had 100 unread messages. By 9, reporters were outside the cafe, shouting questions through the glass. By 10, her manager pulled her aside, eyes full of sympathy she didn't want. Avery. Corporate says it's too much attention. You should take a break. A break. She echoed. You're firing me. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Outside, flashes went off like lightning. Smile for us, Avery. Did he buy you the apartment? Are you moving into his penthouse? She kept walking, head down, arms tight around the paper bag that held everything from her locker. Ethan's drawing was inside 3 stick figures under a crooked sun. A car door opened ahead. Nathan, get in, he said. She wanted to scream at him, to say this is your fault, but she was shaking too hard to speak. He opened the door anyway. Please. And for once, she did what he asked. In the quiet of the SUV, her anger finally found words. They fired me, Nathan. Because of you, he winced. I'll fix it. You can't fix everything. Her voice cracked. I just wanted a normal life. You made me a headline. He gripped the wheel tighter. I never wanted that. Then what did you want? He looked at her, eyes tired. To stop pretending you and Ethan didn't exist. That's not love, Nathan. That's guilt. He didn't argue. He just drove. When they reached his apartment, she refused to get out. I can't live in your world, she said. Every time I breathe, someone's watching. He turned off the engine. Then we build a different world. Her laugh was bitter. You think it's that easy? No, he said. But I think it's possible. Not for us. Avery, I can't let Ethan grow up like that. Cameras in his face, stories about his parents' mistakes. He deserves better. Nathan's voice dropped. He deserves truth. She shook her head. He deserves peace. Silence filled the car. Outside, Manhattan buzzed horns, sirens, the endless hum of a city that didn't care. Finally, he said quietly, then maybe I should walk away again. Her chest tightened. Don't you dare. You just said, I said, I can't live in your world. I didn't say I wanted you gone from his. He exhaled, relief flickering behind his exhaustion. Then tell me what to do. She turned to him. Be his father, not his savior. there's a difference. That night, she stayed in the guest room. The apartment was too big, too quiet, like success built on emptiness. She found him on the balcony later, jacket off, sleeves rolled, city lights painting gold across his face. "You ever think maybe we were a mistake?" she asked softly. He smiled without humor. "Every day, and yet you keep showing up." "So do you," he said. She joined him by the railing, the night air cool against her skin. "We can't keep doing this, hurting each other just to feel something." He looked at her. "Then let's start feeling without the hurt." "How?" He stepped closer, voice low. "By forgiving what we can't change." She searched his face, half wanting to believe him, half afraid to try. "You really think forgiveness fixes this?" "No," he said, "but it's a start." The next morning, a photo hit every gossip site. Nathan Cole and Avery Scott together again. The caption beneath read, "Is this love or leverage?" Avery saw it on the bus ride home. The passengers whispered, scrolling on their phones. She felt eyes on her everywhere. When she reached her apartment, someone had spray painted the door. "Gold digger." Her knees went weak. She sank against the wall. The super came running. "You okay, Miss Scott?" She nodded, but her throat burned. That night, Nathan showed up again. No cameras, no driver, just him. He saw the paint, the mess, the look in her eyes. Without a word, he took the cleaning supplies from her hand and started scrubbing. When the letters were gone, he said quietly, "I can't undo the world, Avery, but I can stand in front of it with you." She swallowed hard. "That's the first honest thing you've said all week." He smiled, weary. "Then I'm finally learning." Later, when Ethan peeked out from his room and saw them sitting side by side on the floor, he asked, "Mum, are we okay?" Avery met Nathan's gaze, then nodded. "We're getting there," Nathan added softly, "one day at a time, champ." The apartment stayed silent after the last reporter left. Avery cleaned until her hands ached, until every trace of spray paint and gossip felt scrubbed from the air. Then she looked at Ethan's drawings taped along the hallway, 3 stick figures under a bright yellow sun, and knew she couldn't keep him here. By dawn, she had packed a single suitcase. A note sat on the counter for Nathan. "Ethan and I need quiet. Don't look for us." She didn't leave a destination. The bus headed north through grey rain and pine forests. Ethan pressed his face to the window, whispering, "It looks like Christmas, Mummy." "Almost," she said. Forcing a smile, they ended up in a small town along the Hudson, where no one cared who Nathan Cole was. The motel smelled of old coffee and river air. For the first time in weeks, no cameras followed them. Avery rented a room above a bakery, got a part-time job washing dishes, and started counting the quiet in-breaths instead of minutes. Each morning, Ethan walked to the park with a new stick or stone for his collection. Each night she told herself they were safe. But silence doesn't last when guilt knows your name. 3 days later, the bakery's doorbell chimed on. There he was. No bodyguards, no suit. Just Nathan, holding 2 cups of coffee like a peace offering. "How did you find us?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "You used your real name at the motel. You're impossible, consistent," he said. She should have told him to leave. Instead, she handed him a towel. "If you're staying, help with the dishes." They worked side by side, water steaming between them. Finally, she said, "You walked away from your company for this." "I didn't walk," he replied. They pushed. I just didn't fight back. What are you even doing here, Nathan? He looked at her, trying to prove that showing up isn't the same as controlling, that I can stand still without ruining everything. She studied him. And if I tell you to go, I'll go, he said quietly. But I'll keep caring. That part you can't stop. Evening settled soft over the river. They took Ethan to the old wooden bridge outside town. The boards creaked underfoot. The air smelled of rain and lilacs. Ethan ran ahead, shouting, "Look!" Fish Avery leaned on the railing. He's finally sleeping through the night again. Nathan nodded. He trusts you. She turned. He's starting to trust you, too. Does that bother you? No, she admitted. It scares me. He watched her a long moment. I know. But I'm not leaving him again, or me. She asked, softly. His answer was barely a whisper. Not unless you tell me to. When the first drops of rain began to fall, Ethan ran back, arms wide. Nathan lifted him easily, laughing, and something in Avery's chest loosened. For a fleeting second they looked like any other family, messy, tired, real. She took Nathan's free hand without thinking. He squeezed once, gentle, grounding. The bridge swayed, thunder rolled. And for the first time in years, the distance between them didn't feel like a wound. It felt like a crossing. The town forgot their names faster than Avery could believe. In places like this, life revolved around the weather and the smell of bread. Not headlines. Nathan worked mornings at the marina, fixing old engines. Avery picked up shifts at the bakery and learned that quiet could be heavy but healing. Ethan made friends with the baker's grandson and came home each day covered in mud and stories. No cameras, no noise, just ordinary. Sometimes Avery caught Nathan watching the sunset from the bridge, his hands still stained with grease, and she'd think, maybe this is who he was supposed to be all along. One evening in early autumn, he cooked dinner-burnt pasta again. She laughed until she cried. You used to have chefs, she teased. I used to have people who pretended the food was good, he said. Ethan poked his fork into the noodles. It's not bad, Mr. Nathan. See? Nathan said. Honest feedback. My favorite kind. Avery smiled. You say that now. It was such a small, stupid moment, but it felt like a beginning. Later, after Ethan fell asleep, they sat on the porch, a blanket around their shoulders, the night full of crickets and the river's slow hum. Avery whispered, Sometimes I forget who you were. He smiled faintly. That's the best thing you could ever tell me. Do you miss it? The company, the power. Sometimes, he admitted. Then I remember how quiet this feels, and I realize I've never really been rich before now. She looked at him, the light soft on his face. You're different. I'm trying to be. You're succeeding. He hesitated. Can I tell you something? She nodded. I keep thinking about what Ethan said that night on the bridge. He said, when he called me Dad. I keep wondering if I'll ever deserve to hear it again. Avery's voice trembled. You already do. You just have to keep earning it. He smiled, a little broken. That sounds like forever. Maybe it is, she said softly. The peace lasted exactly 3 weeks. One afternoon, a man in a dark coat appeared outside the bakery. He waited until Avery came out with the trash. Ms. Scott, he said smoothly. I represent coal industries. The board would like a word. Her stomach dropped. I have nothing to do with them anymore. On the contrary, he said. Mr. Cole's recent choices have financial and legal implications. They need his cooperation or his silence. She stepped back. You should talk to him. Oh, we will, the man said, smiling. But we thought you might convince him to listen. After all, you're the reason he's throwing away everything. That night, Nathan came home late, jaw tight, knuckles scraped. What happened? She asked. An old friend stopped by the marina, he said. Told me the board wants me to sign an NDA. Walk away quietly. Pretend the confession never happened. And if you don't, they'll sue. Try to reclaim assets. Maybe worse. Avery's voice rose. Then sign it. He shook his head. No. Signing means I agree that what we had, what Ethan should have, stayed a secret. I won't do that. She pressed her hands to her temples. Nathan, we can't survive another storm. I'll protect you both, he said. That's not what I want, she said. I want peace. His voice broke. So do I. But peace built on lies isn't peace, it's silence. They didn't speak for hours after that. Just the sound of rain against the windows. The low hum of Ethan's breathing in the next room. When she finally turned out the lights, she found him sitting outside on the steps. Drenched, staring at the river, she went to him. Wrapped the blanket around his shoulders. You can't fight the world alone, she whispered. I'm not, he said quietly. Not anymore. She sat beside him. Then let me decide how far I'm willing to go. He looked at her then, eyes tired but clear. I'll follow your lead. It wasn't an apology. It was surrender, and somehow that was enough. The rain fell all day, heavy and relentless, as if trying to wash away the fragile calm they had finally found. Nathan stayed in the small office on the old boat, laptop open, emails and contracts blinking back at him. Every movement was taut, deliberate, as if the world might collapse with the slightest mistake. Avery stood at the window, watching the grey river swell with the rain. Ethan played on the rug, toy boats scattered around him. He paused, looking up at her. Mum. Dad looks tired. His voice was soft, but it hit her like a mirror, reflecting her own worry. Outside, the black car remained parked in front of the bakery, silent and foreboding. Nathan called her later that afternoon. Don't worry. I'll handle it, he said. No, Nathan, Avery replied firmly. We handle this together. The phone call from Cole Industries' lawyer the next morning left them both silent for a long moment. The NDA was no longer an option. They wanted Ethan. They wanted silence. They wanted control. Nathan inhaled deeply, looking at Avery over the webcam. They're not kidding. In the days that followed, Nathan met with lawyers, and Avery did what she never thought she could. She studied corporate regulations, dug up old contacts, mapped out every legal option. Every hour felt like preparation for a storm they couldn't avoid. One evening, after Ethan was asleep, they sat in the kitchen, quiet except for the soft hum of the refrigerator. Nathan finally spoke. Maybe we need to take a risk. What kind of risk? Avery tilted her head. We won't sign anything. Instead, I'm going to make everything public. My company, my mistakes, everything. No more hiding. Avery's breath caught. You'll do that. To protect Ethan. To protect you. No matter what, he said, voice steady, yet soft. The official call with Cole Industries happened the next morning. Nathan stood on the dock, rain dripping off his shoulders, eyes bright with determination. Avery and Ethan stood beside him, small but steadfast. Nathan said to the representative, "I will not sign an NDA. I will take responsibility for my actions. If you want to challenge me, be prepared for the truth." The representative's confident smile faltered. For the first time, Nathan had the upper hand, not because of wealth, but because of courage and conviction. That evening, they returned home. The rain had softened to a gentle drizzle. Ethan ran barefoot across the yard, laughing, while Nathan wrapped his arms around Avery. "We'll be okay," he whispered, for the first time in a long while. Avery believed him. Winter softened the town, dusting the rooftops and the riverbanks with frost. Avery, Nathan, and Ethan started their new life in a peace they had chosen, not a peace forced upon them. Nathan didn't return to his CEO title immediately. Instead, he started a small consulting firm, helping struggling businesses find their footing, the kind of work that mattered, the work that was honest. Avery stayed at the bakery, now teaching weekend classes for children. Ethan's laughter echoed through the small kitchen, flour dusting his hair. They rented a small house by the river, with a porch overlooking the dock. Each morning, Nathan drove Ethan to school in the old car, while Avery watched from the porch, smiling at the quiet rhythm of their ordinary yet extraordinary life. One afternoon, Nathan returned with a small bag. Inside lay a worn but gleaming ring, the one they had lost the previous year. The ring Ethan had once called Dad's treasure. "I found it," Nathan said softly. Ethan squealed. "Daddy, you have the ring." Nathan bent down, placing it gently in Avery's hand. "I want to start over. Not because we have to, not because it's tradition, but because we choose to." Avery looked into his eyes, seeing the pain, the fear, and now, hope. "I'm ready," she whispered. They laughed together, Ethan between them, and for the first time, the quiet peace they had longed for felt real and lasting. Part 6, Segment 2, the quiet victory finale. Spring arrived, bringing green shoots and sunlight to their riverside home. They set the table outside, baked bread, and Nathan sliced it with a grin. Avery watched Ethan run and play with Nathan, the ring catching the sunlight on his finger. She thought of all they had, endured loss, fear, tears, and laughter, and how it had led them here. No threatening calls, no pretending. The world outside might still be chaotic, but in this little house, they had found true wealth, time, love, trust, and the joy of simple, shared moments. Ethan ran back, holding a wildflower. "Mum, Dad, this is for you." Avery hugged him. Nathan wrapped his arms around both of them. "We'll plant more flowers," he said, gazing at the garden. And so the story closed, not with chaos or loss, but with the sound of joy laughter, wind through the windows, the gentle flow of the river beneath the dock. They had found the ring, found each other, and most importantly, found themselves, finally. Nathan took Avery's hand, looking deep into her eyes. "We've won not against the world, but against our own fears." Avery pressed her hand to his. "And this time, we keep it for ourselves." The final image lingered, 3 figures standing on the porch, facing the river, bathed in the golden light of sunset, smiling whole free, and quietly victorious. The rain had been falling since early morning, relentless, drumming on the roof and the river with a kind of persistence that seemed almost personal. Nathan stayed in the small office aboard the old marina boat, laptop open, contracts and emails blinking back at him like little alarms. His hands hovered over the keyboard, And for the first time in months, he felt the weight of choices that weren't just numbers on a balance sheet, they were lives, futures, his family. Avery stood at the kitchen window of their small, rented house, watching the grey rivers swell under the stormy sky. Ethan's toy cars rolled across the rug with soft clicks, but every so often he would stop and look up at her. "Mum, Dad looks tired," he said quietly, and Avery's heart clenched. The small, innocent observation carried the weight of everything they had gone through, the chaos of the past months, the uncertainty, the fear. Outside, the black sedan that had parked in front of the bakery days ago sat silently, a dark reminder of the world Nathan had left behind but that refused to let go. Nathan called later in the afternoon. "Don't worry. I'll handle it," he said, voice steady but tight. "No, Nathan," Avery answered, her voice firm. "We handle this together." The call from the coal industry's lawyer that arrived the next morning left them both silent for a long, heavy moment. The NDA was no longer just a piece of paper, was a demand for silence, a threat to their lives as a family. Nathan's jaw tightened as he stared at Avery over the webcam. "They're not kidding," he said. In the days that followed, Nathan dove into meetings with lawyers and strategists, mapping every possible move. Avery surprised herself by diving in to learning about corporate regulations, calling old contacts, mapping legal loopholes, and tracing any allies Nathan might have overlooked. The quiet town felt suspended around them, the hum of ordinary life outside in stark contrast to the tension inside the house. One evening, after Ethan had fallen asleep, they sat at the small kitchen table, the storm still thrumming against the roof. Nathan finally broke the silence. "Maybe. We need to take a risk." Avery looked up, curiosity mixed with fear. "What kind of risk?" "We won't sign. Nothing. Instead, I'll make everything public. My company, my mistakes, everything. No more hiding. No more pretending. No more letting anyone control our lives through fear." Her breath caught. You'll do that. To protect Ethan. To protect you. "No matter what," he said softly, but with an iron clarity beneath the gentleness. The next morning, Nathan stood on the marina dock as the storm lightened, rain dripping from his shoulders and hat, eyes bright and unflinching. Avery and Ethan were beside him, small, steadfast, immovable in their own way. He spoke into the phone with the coal industry's representative, voice firm. "I will not sign an NDA. I will take responsibility for my actions. If you want to challenge me, be prepared for the truth." The representative's confident smirk faltered. For the first time, Nathan was in control, not because of money, but because of courage. Avery felt a rush of relief and pride as she watched him. By evening, the storm had softened to a drizzle. Ethan ran barefoot across the yard, laughter echoing between the walls of their little house. Nathan pulled Avery close, wrapping his arms around her shoulders. "We'll be okay," he whispered. For the first time in a long while, Avery believed him. And for the first time, she realized that the storm had passed, not because the danger had disappeared, but because they had faced it together. Winter had crept into the town quietly, dusting the rooftops with frost and frosting the edges of the river with ice. It wasn't harsh or unforgiving, but soft, like a reminder that time moved forward, that life could still be gentle if you let it. Avery, Nathan, and Ethan were learning to live in that gentleness, discovering the rhythm of a life shaped by choice, not fear. Nathan hadn't returned to the towering CEO office, hadn't gone back to the corporate power plays that had once defined him. Instead, he had started a small consulting firm, helping businesses that struggled under debt, bad management, or crises of confidence. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest, and he felt the weight of his work differently, now responsibility with love, not control. Avery stayed at the bakery, her days long but filled with meaning. She began teaching weekend classes for children, letting them knead dough and sprinkle flour, watching their small hands shape their first loaves. She laughed at Ethan when he insisted the bread looked better than Daddy's burnt pasta, and Nathan only shook his head with mock defeat. It was the ordinary life she hadn't realized she'd craved. Their new home sat quietly beside the river, a small house with a porch that looked out over the dock. Each morning Nathan drove Ethan to school in their old, reliable car, waving from the passenger window, while Avery watched from the porch, coffee in hand, her hair messy from sleep, her heart quietly full. The river moved steadily, reflecting the light of the early sun. And for the first time in years, Avery felt like they were anchored somewhere real. One afternoon, Nathan returned from an errand carrying a small paper bag. Avery raised her eyebrows, curious. He sat beside her on the porch and pulled from the bag a worn but familiar object, a ring, scratched at the edges, yet glinting in the sunlight. Ethan's eyes widened immediately. "Daddy, you have the ring," he shouted, jumping up. Nathan smiled gently and leaned toward Avery, placing it carefully in her hand. "I found it," he said, his voice low and steady. "I want to start over, not because we have to, but because we choose to." Avery felt the warmth of his hands brush hers, the pulse of his heart against her own. "I'm ready," she whispered. Ethan squealed, spinning around in circles, then ran to them for a group hug. And in that moment, they weren't just a mother, father, and son, they were a family that had survived storms, both literal and metaphorical, that had chosen each other over fear, over shame. Over the past, the days that followed were filled with ordinary miracles. Nathan chopping firewood whilst Ethan tried and failed to carry his own. Avery kneading bread while the scent filled the entire house, laughter spilling into the river breeze. Each small act was a brick in the foundation of a life they were building. A life that belonged only to them. One quiet evening, Avery and Nathan sat on the porch with hot cocoa, watching Ethan run through the yard with a kite. "Do you ever think about the old life?" Avery asked, her voice low. Nathan glanced at her, a small smile on his face. "Sometimes," he admitted. "Then I watch him laugh, or see you here, and I realize, I've never really had a life like this before. Not really rich, not really full." She reached for his hand, fingers intertwining. "You're building something better now. Something real. We're building it together," he said, eyes soft, tracing her features. "And I wouldn't trade a single moment of it for anything." For the first time in a long while, Avery believed it. For the first time, she felt the quiet thrill of victory, not over the world, not over anyone else, but over the fear that had held them hostage for so long. The house was warm, the river steady, and outside, the first snowflakes of winter began to drift lazily down, like a blessing from the sky, and somewhere in the hush between the wind and the water, they all knew this was just the beginning. Spring arrived softly, brushing the town with green shoots and sunlight that warmed the frozen edges of winter. The river sparkled like liquid gold, and for the first time in years, the air smelled like possibility rather than fear. Avery stood on the porch, watching Nathan and Ethan as they moved through the yard. Nathan carried a small stack of freshly baked bread, each loaf warm and fragrant, while Ethan darted between them, laughing, cheeks flushed, arms full of wildflowers he had gathered from the riverbank. The ring on Nathan's hand caught the sunlight, glinting bright as a promise kept. Avery's heart swelled as she took it all in, the laughter, the sunlight, the smell of bread, the wind brushing through Ethan's hair. Every trial, every sleepless night, every storm they had endured, all of it had led to this, a quiet, unshakable victory. Ethan ran up to her, holding out a single wildflower. "Mum, Dad, this is for you," he exclaimed, breathless. Avery knelt, taking his small hand in hers, and kissed his forehead. Nathan knelt beside them, wrapping his arms around both mother and son. "We'll plant more flowers," Nathan said softly, looking at Avery. "This time we'll watch them grow together." Avery smiled, feeling the weight of the past lift slightly from her shoulders. The world beyond their yard, the lawsuits, the boardroom threats, the whispers of scandal seemed distant, almost unreal. What mattered was here, now, in this small house by the river with her son and the man she had chosen to love. They spent the afternoon planting flowers, Ethan's small hands patting soil around delicate shoots, Nathan guiding him gently, and Avery arranging seeds in neat rows. They laughed when dirt smeared their faces, when the wind knocked over a row of newly planted daisies. Every moment was ordinary, yet extraordinary, because it was theirs. As the sun began to set, casting golden light across the river, Avery leaned against Nathan's shoulder. "Do you think we could ever have imagined this?" she asked softly. Nathan shook his head, a smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "No, and I don't want to imagine anything else. This is enough." Ethan ran to them, panting, holding a small bouquet he had fashioned from the wildflowers. "Look, we made it beautiful." "Yes, we did," Avery said, laughing. Nathan pulled her close, holding both of them, feeling the pulse of life around him, steady, warm, and unbroken. Later, they sat on the porch, the sky turning soft shades of pink and orange. The river reflected the sunset like a ribbon of light stretching endlessly into the horizon. Avery's hand found Nathan's, their fingers intertwining. "We've won," Nathan whispered, voice low but certain. "Not against the world, against our own fears." Avery pressed her hand to his, smiling. "And this time, we keep it for ourselves." Ethan leaned against them, already dozing, his small chest rising and falling in peaceful rhythm. Avery looked at him, then at Nathan, feeling the weight of everything behind them, the loss, the pain, the battles, and knew that it had all been worth it. As the sun slipped behind the distant hills, the final image lingered, 3 figures on the porch, facing the river, their shadows long and soft in the golden light. They were whole, free, quietly victorious. The world could rage beyond the riverbank, but here, in this small home, love and family had triumphed, and for the first time, Avery allowed herself to truly breathe, knowing that no storm, no lawsuit, no shadow from the past could touch them anymore. They had found each other. They had found peace. The river flowed gently beneath the dock. The wind whispered through the trees. And in the golden glow of evening, the family smiled together, ready for every tomorrow that would come together.